Hi guys! Today we are going to be discussing beer. That's right, beer. I'm sure a lot of you have had a nice cold glass of beer that you've absolutely loved. Well, luckily for us beer enthusiasts, this is the golden age of craft brews. Today we are going to be discussing the history of beer within the United States. Next, we will talk about how the brewing industry came about and why it's so popular today. And finally, we're going to touch on the actual methods behind creating beer. Now, beer has been around for thousands and thousands of years, but in America, it only started during colonization. During this time, people brewed beers in their homes because it was nutritional and safer to drink than water. Research historian Mary Thompson even claims that George Washington brewed his own beer at his estate in Mount Vernon during the 18th century. But when beer became really valuable was during the Civil War. According to an article by Howard Strange, who provided a business perspective on the industry, this was because of a couple of reasons. First of all, beer was taxed, therefore it helped finance the war. And second of all, it was rationed off to soldiers because of its nutritional value. After the war, the industry continued to grow tremendously due to lower prices and mass immigration into the country. Unfortunately, by 1920 to 1930, prohibition completely crippled the industry. Now that we know some of the prehistory to the beer industry in the United States, we can explore how and why craft breweries became so huge today. Now, a craft brewery is a term for a small-scale, independently owned brewery who makes beer using traditional brewing methods and emphasizes flavor. By the 1960s, the industry picked up once again, and this was because a lot of corporations started popping up. And with these corporations came corporate brewers. Now, these corporate brewers were creating really bland, boring tasting beers, and the people did not like that. So, according to an article by Ranjit Deej, a professor of economics at the State University of New York, craft brewers were a response to this lack of a distinct indigenous brewing tradition. In other words, craft brewers were popping up because they were a counterculture striving to stand up to big businesses and government, and they wanted to develop these privately owned craft breweries in their homes. Today, we have so many craft breweries because it's so easy to advertise them through social media and apps, and they are so easily accessible within supermarkets, delis, and bars. And with this accessibility, people are able to try new things. According to Deej, craft breweries have tripled between 2012 and 2016. That's amazing. And with new people wanting to try new beers, this market does not show any signs of slowing down. Now that we've learned some important historical points about the growth of the beer industry within the United States, let's get to the fun part. How is beer actually made? It's actually pretty simple. There are 4 basic ingredients: barley, water, hops, and yeast. The sugars that are released from the barley mix with the yeast to produce CO2 and alcohol. The first part of the process is malting, where the grains are harvested and heated, dried out, and cracked. The second step is mashing, where they are soaked in warm water until they get mushy and become a sweet and sticky liquid called wort. Next, they are boiled, and in this step, the wort has spices and hops added to it. Now, because the barley is releasing sugars, hops is a type of plant that adds bitterness and zestiness to balance out the sweetness in this liquid. Finally, the concoction is fermented. So after being strained and filtered and stored at a specific temperature, depending on what type of beer you're trying to make, the beer is fermented for a couple of weeks, and this is the step where alcohol is created. Finally, we need to bottle and age the beer. At this point, we have alcoholic beer, but it's not carbonated. So we can either put the beer in a bottle and artificially carbonate it, or we can continue storing it for a couple more weeks where it naturally produces carbonation through the chemical interaction between the yeast and the sugar. So now that we've reviewed the process a little bit, let me know what your favorite type of beer is and when is your favorite time to drink it. In conclusion, the microbrewing industry has had a roller coaster of a ride throughout the history of the US, but is now reaching an all-time high. Beer emerged strongly during the Civil War up until Prohibition nearly destroyed the industry. Small business owners or microbrewers responded to the bland and repetitive nature of huge corporate brewing companies by diversifying the industry with new flavors. We also reviewed how beer is made with 4 basic ingredients through the process of malting, mashing, boiling, fermentation, and then bottling or aging. Whether you love beer or you hate beer, it's everywhere, and I believe there's a brew out there for everybody. Now, when you're enjoying a brew with your friends, you could tell them some of the interesting facts that you learned today. Thank you.